Hello. Welcome back to another Shoe Snob podcast. I know it's been a while. That hacking took a lot out of me with YouTube and kind of took me back a bit. And just been trying to get back in the swing of things. Also been very busy and the podcasts take time. So squeezing one in today. So let's see if we can get the ball rolling. Anyway, I've been thinking about what to talk about and I realized I tend to stick to the same type of subjects, and I wanted to talk about something that I've been noticing lately. Something that for me is concerning, and I wanted to discuss it because I think it's an important and very relevant topic to the world today, and that is the decline of what I feel is new European shoemakers. Brands in general, so to speak. When I say so to speak, and this will be another podcast, there's a huge rise in Spanish shoemaking, but not for European brands, a lot more for American brands. So another podcast for another subject. Forgive all the people who walk by and they're quite loud. But yeah, I'm sitting and I'm wondering, I'm doing some events around the world where we invite shoemakers, and I'm trying to think of European shoemakers to invite, and I'm just like, there are none. I mean, there are a few, and it's wild. It's it just kind of, I don't know, fell into the background as the rise of Asian and East Asian, Asian, Chinese, Vietnam, India. These kind of countries have been rising, also Indonesia as well. These countries have been rising with shoemakers and shoemaking culture. And, Europe, which is the hub, the foundation of shoemaking culture, has kind of been slowly declining. Let's rewind 10 years ago, and in Europe shoemaking was all the rage. You had St. Crispin's blowing up on the scene. You had Bestetti blowing up on the scene. You had the beginnings of Stefano Bemmer becoming popular, even though they had been around for years prior. You had Vash becoming more popular as well, even though they again had been around for years, but they were now becoming, with the start of the internet, the European makers exploded and there were new brands. So, St. Crispin was born from Zonky Boot. They were two cousins and they kind of went different ways. And trying to think of who else were big in the kind of shoe brand world. There's my brand, there's the Barbonera guys, and there was who else? I'm trying to think. I mean, TLB, okay, brands like Carmina have been famous for a long time. Who else was really exploding in terms? I mean, obviously G&G started a few years before our brand, coming out of England. Septième Lager, okay, they're not, they make in another factory, but still there was this rise of European brands and shoemakers. And now I just have a hard time finding a new one, thinking about a new one, trying to discover a new one. Don't get me wrong, you have new European brands. There are some more obscure, less heard of brands that are really cool, but they're just not hitting the bubble of the internet, like Le Maillot Dome, Swiss company doing really interesting kind of made-to-order styles. There was, of course, I'm forgetting Meerman. There's Meerman, who has been on the scene now again for a while, and And then you also had other brands that have come, but I don't really include them into this because they're just very much simple classic makes. You got your Velasca, you got your this is a big one now, your Morjas, but these to me aren't like Shoemakers, for example. These are just really filling a cheaper price product, but really makes of classic models. So there's nothing for me special about this because it's really just getting something that exists at a lower price under a different label. That's the way I see them. Another kind of big one, like in terms of a brand that really came out of nowhere and did their own thing and their own ideas, Baudouin and Lang, which, you know, but for me, I don't look at that as a classic shoemaker. That's more of, you know, they took Belgian slippers and made it their way and that exploded. And so, I don't know, I'm kind of worried for the European shoe industry because I don't, sorry, I got somebody, forgive me, knocking on my window. They don't see that I'm filming. The perils of being in front of a big open window. But I'm just trying to think, like, where are the European shoemakers? You know, truth be told, the buzz of St. Crispin's went away. Vas went away. Sadly, Bestetti passed away and was bought out by another guy who, from all the stories I've heard, has destroyed the brand, and I haven't seen their Instagram updated in years. There's a lot more on that as well, but not for me to speak on. Bemmer's rising, which is great. That always makes me feel good, as I always felt Stefano Bemmer, the man, had great visions and was sadly under-recognized, and the new owner, Tommaso's done a great job of exploding that, and I think it's well-deserved because Stefano had some of the most brilliant designs the shoe industry has ever seen. So, greatly happy about that. Who else? If we're roping in England into Europe, which I kind of do, you know, it's the greater continent of Europe, you know, Church has just been destroyed by Prada, probably to the point where Churches might no longer exist soon, which is horribly sad. You know, it's funny how many trolls I had bad-mouthing me because I talked about the decline of Churches 12 years ago, 10 years ago, and all these people who know nothing about anything commenting terribly, and now they're all biting their words and even admitting they were wrong because that company's just gone by the wayside. Now it's just, again, I don't even think that brand will exist soon. Foster's had a long time fight with staying relevant and alive. Same with Sargent. Sargent's been bought out so many times and reinvested. Now they're under a new label, and I worry for their future. French companies have been buying out a lot of English names and factories. At least it's staying in Europe, but it's definitely changing British shoemaking. G&G's on the rise, which is great. Again, another soft spot for me. Tony and Dean are good friends of mine, guys that I really admired and who helped me a lot along my way. Excuse me. Edward Green, I almost hear nothing of anymore. Just, you know, great shoemakers. Love Edward Green stuff, but they're not really pushing it in terms of relevance in the shoe industry. And so I just feel like the European shoe industry is vanished. It's gone down. Not vanished, but nothing new is coming out. Most of the factories no longer... Okay, let me back up with that statement. There are so many factories in Europe, especially in Italy. But most of the ones that are classic welted world, for example, are now just focusing on their own brands in retail. Wholesale and private label are slowly evaporating from Italy. England factories, I don't even know English factories that really make for other brands. I mean, okay, you got a brand like Ralph Lauren who can come in and push their weight around because maybe they order 1,000 pairs and they're Ralph Lauren. But gone are the days that a guy like me who has some ideas can go into a factory with, you know, barely enough money to scrape together for a first collection and place an order under my own label. And that worries me for the British manufacturing industry. Who's going to want to replace? Let me back that phrase up. Sorry, you know, with the podcast, everything is just fresh off the head. No notes, no nothing. So sometimes I need to roll back my train of thought. Who's going to start a new factory? Is there a new factory going to pop up? You know, the more I talk to factories, I deal with one on a daily basis. I know owners of other ones. The sad reality is nobody wants to be a factory worker anymore. Everybody wants to be a tech guy, you know? Work from home, sit in front of your computer, have whatever freedom you think you have, potentially get paid good money. There's no pride or value anymore in being a manual laborer for many different manual labor sectors. Factory shoemaking, for me, is one of them. It's kind of manual labor in a sense. It's, you know, you are working with your hands. It's not glamorous, you know, and maybe it's a catch-22 because you could say, oh, well, the factory should just pay more. Yeah, but factories pay more means the prices of shoes go up. But right now, consumers just want to buy cheap stuff. Consumers want to wait for 60% off. Consumers are actually hurting the shoe industry. You know, they go buy the cheaper versions of the classic makers. I don't know, assuming that there's no difference in quality maybe, or they just don't care because they just want a cheaper price. I can't lie, you know, I fall under the same type of consumer mentality sometimes in other sectors. Obviously, when it comes to shoes, I don't think like that, but you know, I wait for a deal to buy clothes at Banana Republic because, yeah, I don't want to pay full price. So I can't say that it's bad or that it's wrong, but I can say that the continued trend hurts the industry on the whole. It hurt when I do that with clothes. It hurts the clothing industry. It hurts the big brands. They just become known for only being bought at that price. Nobody buys it at full price. And then on top of that, when you have the rise of the Asian shoemakers with much lower retail prices and good quality, makes it hard for somebody to justify buying the European shoe. So it's scary to think about because I think, who's going to start a new factory? Starting a new factory is, you know, that statement is very easy to say, but the reality is very difficult to do. When I'm in the factory that I work with, my gosh, it is a organizational nightmare. I would never dream. People ask me, oh, would you ever want to have your own factory? I'm like, not if I have to run it. You know what I mean? It's just not easy. There are so many moving components and things that can affect the production line. I just feel like you have to constantly be lying to do business. This is what I feel from factories. You know? It's tough. It's sad. So it makes me think, who's going to do that? Who's going to find the capital to buy a new factory? Then you got to find the workers. That comes with skill. A lot of the guys that have skill are probably approaching retirement. New guys don't want to be learning that. But you can't open a factory with new people because what are you going to, you have to train them. They need to be trained. They need to be able to know how to make the product straight out of the gate. So I think, okay, what could, you know, potentially you could have new hand welted companies like St. Crispin's, but these struggle. Let's just look at Passes. Very similar to St. Crispin's, Hungarian brand, hand welted, handmade shoes. They haven't done a post on Instagram in like 4 months. I wonder if they're still doing business. It makes me wonder if they survived. So It's a hard time to be a European shoemaker right now, or to be a brand that sells a European product. And it's sad, it's scary. Scary is not the right word. I'm not scared, but I worry about the future, of European shoemaking. And I just don't see, unless the greats somehow expand their factories and do so with more private labeling to allow designers to come in and build unique brands that are different from the house label, I don't see the European shoe industry growing. It's just most factories, I think, especially now, want to focus on retail. Also because nobody's coming to place $1,000 private label orders in the big department stores. They're not eager to come place large orders in the economy that we're in, with retail suffering greatly. So the factories are almost left to focus on their own brand, pushing their product, which means the more they sell their product, the less inclined they are to make a product for anybody else. If I put myself in the shoes of the factory, it's much nicer if you have an established factory brand name to sell a product that you make at true cost and sell for good retail. That's a good margin. Way more better to sell to brand XYZ for wholesale at a small margin above your true cost. You're making the same product, but you're gaining far less on it. The potential headaches are still there. The only thing that is kind of changing is that, you get an order for, let's just call it 1,000 pairs. And you make your payment and your money, boom, your profit just like that. And you don't have to sell that stock, it's sold. But again, all the same headaches of production are there, sourcing the leather, making the shoes, not making seconds, making it on time, this, that, for a smaller benefit at the end in terms of profit. It's weird. It's strange to me. I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of obscure makers that I no longer find anymore, because I won't lie, I'm so wrapped up in my own company behind a lot of the times that I don't just sit and research anymore like I used to 12 years ago when I had all the time in the world. I was just shining shoes on a desk like this, and I could just sit and scroll for days discovering new things. But when I come to think of it, I just don't see a ton of new makers in the industry coming out of Europe. I do see a ton of brands, not makers, brands, making a very identical product coming out of Spain. That I won't lie, and again, that will be another podcast. But as far as, historical great brands out of Europe, sad to say, I think we've seen the last of them, and I'm not sure there's going to be many more. I just don't see new factories being started. Sad to say. Now, I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to see a resurgence of people wearing dress shoes in the world, and a demand so crazy that it forces people to want to do that business. But with the rise of Cole Haan and the like, and a rise of countries filled with people like Americans who just want to be comfortable and wear all birds and horrendous footwear that provides them so-called cushion but zero actual support, which is what we really need, then I don't see this happening. The more the rise of Lululemon and joggers and trainers and sneakers, which are great because I love sneakers, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place for them. But the fact that we wear them Monday through Sunday is a whole nother story. And as long as that trend continues upwards, which I pray it doesn't, then there'll be no incentive to go and start a shoe factory with a world that just wants casual comfort. So, I don't know. Have you thought about this? This just kind of hit me recently. And the more I think about it, the kind of sadder it is, and the more I realize, I don't think it's going to have a turn. I still think there's going to be a huge rise in footwear coming out of Asia. I think that trend is going to continue. And sadly, as that trend continues, and it's not sad that that trend continues, but sadly the reality is as that trend does continue, it will just cause the European industry to suffer more and more. As their competition grows with makers that, in all honesty, I have been seeing products just as good as European makes for 75% to half the price, makes it tough for the European makers to continue to be relevant in this world. You can only live so long on the stamp made in. Soon that won't mean anything. So thought I'd do something a little different today. Not trying to educate, but really just have an open discussion about things that I see. I'd like to almost bring you more topics like this, an open-ended topic. Get your opinions in the comments, or a news topic, XYZ brand just launched. Wow, look at this, look at that. So I'm trying to expand. I'm trying to do what I can with the time that I have. My time is often limited to morning before my shop opens. So do bear with me as I do find time, as I do manage to scrape ideas in my head together to present something that's worthy of discussion. But what about you? How do you feel about this topic that I am speaking on today? Do you feel that too? Do you care about it? Are you happy that the rise of Asian makers is booming and that European ones don't really matter? Would you like to see more European ones? I'd be curious. Something I didn't touch on, and we probably all know this, but the other difficult thing is especially in France, many of the rich conglomerate companies buy up smaller factories and essentially take away the ability to have a factory that produces small, independent, unique makers, because they buy it for their stuff till they can grow Louis Vuitton, Hermes, whoever is buying it. That's another reality. And if that continues, if those guys keep getting bigger and stronger and more powerful, buying up tanneries, factories, brands, this, that, that will be the whole European industry, will be the big, massive conglomerate designer brands. That would be a sad day. But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the subject. So please do feel free to share in a comment. And thank you as always for tuning in. I do appreciate everybody's support. If you've never checked out my blog, theshoesnobblog.com, definitely give it a look. Lots of other content there outside of my talks. And also, if you've never seen my shoe brand, which is in the background, it's jfitzpatrickfootwear.com. So I appreciate all the support and love. Give us a thumbs up, a like, and if you'd like, leave a comment and your thoughts on the subject at hand. I wish everybody a great day, and thank you again for tuning in. Take care. Bye-bye.